Okay, so tonight's first presenter is Tom Evans. And this is so fun to introduce him because I've known Tom for quite a while. We've taught a whole bunch of classes together. Actually, the first place I ever met Tom was at a mock rescue in Pettijohn's cave. And I was his angel, which meant I was watching out for him. And we got into the cave, we got situated where we were supposed to be. And I was like, Tom, it always takes the students hours to come find you. Let's go caving. And he looked at me like, are you crazy? I'm like, oh, we don't have to go super far. Well, we started down the passageway and we were just loving all the fossils and just the neat parts in that passageway. And then we were like, oh, do we hear voices? And sure enough, they were voices, and the students were coming so much sooner than we expected. We had to scamper back so we could get in place where he was supposed to be found. So that was our very fun start of getting to know each other, and we've had many more adventures since then. So Tom is a rock and biology nerd who's been caving for 16 years. His favorite things to do are play underground while hanging from a rope and learn about the natural world. He is an NCRC instructor and is actively engaged in his local grotto, cave survey, and rescue community. In his spare time, he volunteers teaching rope rescue and runs a research program related to rope rescue. He is passionate about SPAR training and hopes everyone will learn small party assisted rescue skills. His talk title is Small Party Assisted Rescue, or SPAR, versus Call-Out Rescues. And so everyone, please help me welcome Tom Evans.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. I am glad to have you guys here. Give me just a second to set up my screen so I can see everyone as I'm giving the talk here. First, thank you for all coming. Caving is kind of like a small community where we really should be family. The caver who got me into caving, his name is Bob Osborne, for those of you who know him. The first day he put me on a rope, he told me, Tom, look, I will happily make you a caver. I will teach you everything. I will literally teach you the ropes. But he said, you have to promise me right here, right now, that you will treat every other caver like family. And I think that was one of the best things that he possibly could have done, both as just helping me be a better human being, but also just being a person to show me how we should be behaving for each other underground. And so I just want to thank you guys for showing up, because our goal ultimately should be so that we are self-sufficient underground so that we can help others if the need arises. So thank you for coming to get training. And to that end, I want to say hi to all the people who are my family that I haven't seen in a long time. There are a bunch of different names. So it's good to see all of you. COVID has been kind of a pain since I haven't been able to see you guys in a while. So just as a couple of guidelines for today, feel free to ask questions as we go through the talk. I would like this more to be a discussion than me talking at you. So it's usually easier just to type your questions in the box. You're also welcome to raise your hand. I should be able to see any hands that are raised off to the side. You can also just unmute yourself too and just butt in real quick. It usually is easier to type in the chat box though. Just give me a minute to finish my thought before I answer your questions. So with that said, ask questions whenever you would like. So why are we here? Well, there's basically two rescue philosophies that are currently out there. And I don't know if a lot of new cavers, or even those of us who've been around for a while, really understand both of them. And so what I want to do is kind of explain what the two rescue philosophies are, and then give you characteristics of each so that you have an idea of when one is more appropriate than the other. And this is not going to be a I don't believe there's a one solution fits everything solution. Rather, I want to give you guys the ideas of what's the strengths and weaknesses of both of the different philosophies, so that you can kind of pick and choose as the situation demands. So let's just kind of define our terms here. A call-out rescue is usually a rescue that's initiated by the authority having jurisdiction, or AHJ. That is a rescue that is initiated by essentially the 911 system. It's where someone who is an official state or local representative says, hey, we have a rescue. And in Western states where I'm at, that's usually the sheriff's department for a given county. Now that does vary state by state, so that doesn't work everywhere, but generally speaking out west, it's by each county. So if you're unfamiliar with the system, it's basically organized search and rescue that you kind of see on television. These are the people who are called to find missing hikers and, people who are looking for mushrooms or hunters or whatnot. And these are the people that that train year-round to help people in distress and in need. So that's what I'm talking about by call-out rescue. This is the official state or local search and rescue team. Okay. Small party assisted rescue is totally different. Small party assisted rescue is essentially when something bad happens while you're on a caving trip, or make it even broader, it can be any sort of outdoor adventure, right? If something goes bad, the party that is going to do that adventure takes care of the problem, whatever that problem may be, right? The idea is that small party, that's the caving party, whoever's there, assisted because you're assisting the person out. You're not actually doing a carry-out rescue because you only have a few people there, right? You're not caving in groups of 35. And if you are, wow, okay. And then it's a rescue because you don't need to search for the person. They got injured and you know where they are, right? Now, just as a little bit of a history, this term actually came out of a phone call. Many years ago, we were trying to kind of revamp the small party rescue course that NCRC had, and I was on a phone call with Andy Armstrong, and we were kind of bantering back and forth, what we wanted to do with this class and how he would resurrect it and how he'd bring it back. And he kept telling me, Tom, look, we need to assist these people out. This is not like we're rescuing them. We're not carrying them out. This is an assist. And I was like, well, why don't we call it small party assisted rescue? And he was like, yes, that's awesome. So this is a relatively recent term that only showed up, 7 or 8 years ago. So it's really about a small group of individuals helping someone else out who is injured. This is not a carry-out rescue where you're having to do all the work for that person. You're really assisting someone else who's lightly broken. Okay. And that's important because if the person is really heavily broken, you can't do it with a small party. Now, the thing with small party rescues is that they're probably pretty common in caving. And it's not entirely clear how many there are in a given year because not everyone reports it to ACA, to American Caving Accidents. So my little pitch right now is that if you are involved in or have historically been involved in kind of an assisted rescue where you help someone out of a cave who got mildly broken, please write that up for the ACA. And I can tell you right now, I owe Bonnie one right now. So, this is my fault too. But they're very common, and we really, really, really need good data. So if you're familiar with any of these small party rescues that occur, please, please, please get them submitted to ACA. We could really use the data. So why should we even care? Like, if we've got an official rescue team, why should we as cavers perform a rescue in the first place? And I wanted to use these two pictures to kind of illustrate this point. The cave environment can kill people before their injuries will. And to give you a very good example of this, we have the above ground search and rescue team, which is doing a training. They're on a beautiful sunny day. Presumably it's fairly warm. Maybe it's cool, but it's still a beautiful sunny day. I would love to be out there right now. Okay. The other picture, on the other hand, is the Thai rescue of those boys. Now, if you're familiar with that rescue at all, you have a whole bunch of boys who were uninjured. They were not at all injured. The problem was the environment was slowly going to kill them. And so removal from that environment was necessary. So it became a rescue even though they were not uninjured. So the reason why a small party rescue is useful is because the cave environment can harm your patient faster than their injury can. So it's important to remove the patient from that environment, depending on what it is. And I've even done trainings in places like Puerto Rico, and we've put where the water and the caves are warm, absolutely balmy. And we've managed to get patients hypothermic in a matter of hours and minutes. So the cave environment is just brutal. So in many cases, it's better for your patient to get them out of the cave than it is for them to wait for rescue to occur. So that's why for our community, a small party rescue is actually quite advantageous. It's really what's in the best interest of patient care. So that's why it's a big deal for our community as a whole. Now, I want to emphasize this point because the picture down here on the lower right is a picture of a gentleman who was stuck in a cave. That environment is not pleasant versus the other environment, which is an actual rescue, is pretty balmy. Which environment would you rather be in? I can tell you right now, I would much rather be in the sunny one. Okay, right now. Now, from what I understand is this gentleman who's in the water, he was uninjured. He was just stuck. But I would much rather be broken above ground in a warm, sunny day, waiting for a helicopter to show up than underground and just stuck in a hole. So what's in the best interest of our patient is usually get them to daylight. And that's why small party rescue is so important for our community. So what are the pros and cons for each of these different kind of philosophies? Well, the pros and cons are actually situationally dependent. So I don't like thinking of them as pros and cons. I think I would rather say, what are the characteristics of each one of these different mechanisms of rescue? Because they become a pro or a con depending on the situation. So I don't actually believe either one is better than the other. One is just more appropriate for situations than others. So rather than saying pros and cons, I want to frame this as what are the characteristics of these two different rescue modalities? And I hope that will be a little bit more of a productive discussion than, oh, this is good or this is bad. Okay, those value judgments you can make at the time. Okay. So here's just kind of a quick overview of the differences between the two. And I'll go through each one and give you some examples for each. But generally speaking, call-out rescues have a lot of people. They've got a lot of gear. They can call out any specialty they need. They've got literally any sort of specialist on earth. So whatever specialty skills they need, they just call. They often have big budgets. There's often quite a bit of risk to rescuers because there are just so many of them. And they're not really as conservation minded when it comes to the caves themselves. Small party assisted rescues, on the other hand, tend to be just the people on the trip, the gear they're carrying, the skills that they had prior to entering the cave. There are, of course, small budgets because we're all cavers and we blow all our money on caving gear, at least I do. And lower risks for the rescues themselves because we're used to working in caves. And of course, lastly, because we are cavers, we're not going to trash the cave nearly as much as individuals who are in a call-out scenario. So let's kind of look at the extreme differences between these two modalities really quickly. When I talk about having a lot of people available, usually your caving trips are, somewhere in that 3 to 6 category. I mean, I think the biggest trip I was ever on was 15, was with a group of school students. So usually we're talking 3 to 6, 3 to 7 or 8, these are not large groups of people. However, call-out rescues can be literally hundreds of people. When I volunteer with above ground teams, we're talking like, you'll have a training where there'll be 60, 70, 80 people there. I've been on rescues where there was 120 people just showed up, right? So they can literally mobilize hundreds of people. And for a small party, you're looking at the exhausted people right there. That's it. Whoever was on the trip. And as a result, the number of people and how fresh those people are become a limiting factor in that rescue. In the small party, if the people are really strong and fit, awesome, they can do the rescue. Maybe it will require extra cavers, in which case that becomes a call-out rescue. Now, the amounts of gear that call-out rescuers can bring to bear is just staggering. I can't even, I'm working on a project right now with a local SAR team, and I had to go visit their training venue. And the tonnage of equipment that they have available to them is staggering. And I literally mean that tonnage. their search and rescue trailer, they have a search and rescue trailer that looks like this, but they also have an entire warehouse. And just the amount of equipment they can get is just staggering. The thing with small party rescues is you don't have a ton of gear. You only have the gear with you that comes into the cave with you. And so your equipment is limited. You know, you might have to MacGyver this stuff because you only got what you brought with you. Now, for those of you who've been with training or have been in trainings with me, you know that my favorite little saying is 2 clippies, 2 grippies, and 2 slippies. And Gretchen's smiling because she's heard me say that a bunch of times. That you can perform an entire rescue if you've got basically 2 pulleys of some sort, 2 carabiners or screw links of some sorts, or 2 clippy things, and then 2 rope grabs of some sorts, or 2 grabby things. Now that doesn't have to be what you personally are carrying. You can divvy it up between the 6 people in your team. I don't care. The point is you should have just enough a little extra gear that you can rig things with. And so because you are limited by the gear that you brought in with you, my operational saying is 2 clippies, 2 grippies, and 2 slippies. Just have that with you because you can rig a system if you need. Okay. My point is that if you don't bring 2 clippies, 2 grippies, and 2 slippies, you're making it up on the fly with whatever's left over. And you can do it, it's just harder. Okay. So call out rescue, metric tons of gear, small party rescues, whatever you brought with you underground. As far as the skills are concerned, call-out rescues can mobilize whoever they want. They can call for medical doctors. They can call for people who are good at blasting. They can call for people who are good at swift water. They can call for whoever they want. With that said, in small party rescue, you only have the skills that enter the cave with you. And so what you learn prior to going caving is critically important. So I will advocate, and you will hear, I'm sure all of the NCRC instructors advocate that you study and you train. You take levels 1, 2, and 3. You take TOEFL. You take the NCRC SPAR class. You take classes from other organizations. Learn as much as you can. And it looked like there was a question here. It looks like it was John. Yes, so John, what I mean by the 2 clippy, 2 grippy, 2 slippy is that this is extra equipment that's not related to your climbing system. Now, you can build things with your climbing system, but then it limits your ability to move through the cave on your own. And so ideally, you would have extra things that you wouldn't have to scavenge from your own harness. So that's the ideal, right? But yes, so it's in addition. So yes, exactly. Thank you, Scott, for pointing that out. So my point is please get training. Okay, do personal study. I literally spent 2 years where I just sat down with every rigging book I could possibly find, and I read and I read and I read and I practiced and I practiced and I practiced. And I'm sure if you talk to any one of the other instructors, they will give you a similar sort of educational trajectory. Now, when it comes to call-out rescues, since they throw bodies at the problems, there's often a high risk for the rescuers, particularly underground. And the reason why is because these individuals aren't cavers usually. They're usually people who are great at backpacking, hiking, maybe ice climbing, maybe crevasse rescue. They have a lot of great outdoor skills, but they're not used to going underground. And we all know that going underground is a completely different beastie than doing anything else above ground. They're widely different skills. So what you do is if you have a call-out rescue, you're taking a whole lot of people underground that don't know what they're doing as far as how to move. And that means that they are at a high risk for getting injured themselves. Even if it's a simple cave, or what we as cavers would think is simple, things that we think are simple to newbies is going to be complicated. I mean, I cannot tell you the number of times I've taken newbies in a cave. I'm like, oh, it's simple. You just down climb and it's great. And then they're like, this looks like I need a rope. And to them, they do. So for a call-out rescue to take place in underground, you're likely to pull, 15, 30, 50 individuals underground who just don't know how to move through it. With a small party rescue, on the other hand, it's usually low risk for the rescuers themselves because you guys are underground because you're caving. You know how to cave. You're already there. Now, there are fewer people, so the total amount of risk is actually lowered. When you have a whole bunch of people in a call-out rescue, if each person's got a 5% probability of getting injured, well, that's a lot, cumulatively speaking. if you've only got 6 people underground and one person's already injured, and each one of you has a lower probability of getting injured, it's even smaller. Okay, so because there are fewer people who understand the environment, they're not going to be as at risk. So fundamentally, a call-out rescue is risky, but maybe necessary if an individual is truly broken 6 ways to Sunday, which we'll get into shortly. So when is each appropriate? Well, there are really 3 options. You can do a small party assisted rescue only. You can do a situation where you start doing a small party assisted rescue and then it merges with a call out rescue as the rescuers come into the cave. Or you could realize, look, this is way beyond what I can do. We just need help. In that situation, you get a call out rescue to start. So here's my general rule of thumb, is that if you can complete a small party rescue, do it. Because it's less rescue, less equipment, it's really fast for the most part. But you may not be able to complete the rescue. And that's fine. Because if you can start that rescue and you can send someone out to give you aid in the future, you move the patient even closer to the entrance. So by the time the rescuers get there, they have a shorter distance to travel to the outside world. And of course, if you have to do a full call-out rescue, well, go for it. Sometimes it's absolutely necessary. Well, let's dig into how to make that decision. And this is a world, according to Tom. The small party assisted rescue manual we've got has a similar diagram. This one I think is a little more detailed, but this is how I personally think about how to do a small party assisted rescue. And the critical thing here is that the patient's medical condition dictates what you do. It doesn't matter what's convenient for you per se, it's what the patient needs. That's what we should be focusing on. So my first question that I ask is, does the patient need spinal mobilization? Are they so broken that they need to be on a backboard? Well, if the answer is yes, you can't do it with 6 people, right? The amount of energy that those 6 people are going to have to do or to expend to get a person all the way out of the cave is just prohibitive. They will not be able to do it. So if you've got a patient who is who needs a backboard, who's got a broken neck or spinal cord, or not spinal cord, but spinal column, they need a call-out rescue. They need a whole bunch of people to show up with a big litter, strap them down, carry them out. Now, if the answer is no, if this person is only mildly broken, well, then a small party rescue is a possibility. It's an option. So then what I do is I say to myself, okay, well, the medical condition allows us to do a SPAR, okay? We think, okay, with that gross approximation of do they need a litter. So the next thing that I ask myself is, do I know and does my team know how to move my patient through all these obstacles? Like, do I actually have the knowledge necessary to get him out of the cave? Well, the answer may be no. If I don't know the techniques necessary to get them to the outside world, then it doesn't matter if I'm the world's most wonderful rigger, right? It doesn't matter if I'm, the greatest rescuer on earth. If I don't know how to get them from point A to point B, which is the outside world, I need help. I need to call for outside rescuers. If, on the other hand, I'm like, yeah, okay, I totally know how to get them out of here, then I can potentially start a small party rescue because I know how to do it. Awesome. No problem. But that's not all of it, right? Just knowing how to do it doesn't mean you can actually implement it, because sometimes you need equipment. You might know how to do it, but you don't have the gear to do it. And that's why those 2 clippies, 2 grippies, 2 slippies are so important, because if you have the equipment, you can actually build the systems you know how to do. So I ask myself, do I have the gear necessary to perform the rescue? If the answer is no, I got to call for outside help. If the answer is yes, awesome, then I could potentially run a small party rescue. So once I've determined I know how and I've got the gear for it, I actually have to do some really serious introspection. And this is a real hard thing for cavers to do when you see a friend broken, is do I have enough people to do the job? So even if I know how to do it, do I have the number of folks I need? Now, the probability is yes if you've got a lot of training. But if you're in a group of 3 and you only know some pretty brute force techniques, you may not be able to pull it off. So even though you know how to accomplish the rescue, you've got the gear for it, you may not have the bodies for it, in which case go get some more bodies. Do a call out rescue. Of course, if you've got the bodies, awesome, do a SPAR. And this last one is where the introspection really comes in, which is, are the individuals present in good enough shape that they can help? And this is a tough question because we all want to help our friends. You know, I'll crawl through fire for my caving friends, and I'm sure most of you would too. But sometimes you're pretty beat up by that cave, and you may not be physically able to perform the rescue, even though you know how, you got the equipment, and you got the personnel. Now, one thing you can do is you can just rehab. You can sit down for a few hours, you know, rest, relax, eat, drink, recover, and then start. That is an option too, right? So if you go through all of this and you say to yourself, yeah, we can do it. We got the gear, we know how to do it, we got the personnel, we're feeling great. Let's do a small party rescue. Awesome. What you can do is you can start the rescue, right? And as you're going through that rescue, you just reassess, see how things are going. You might start as a small party rescue, and after about 3 hours of being underground or carrying someone or assisting them, you're just exhausted, and you're like, you know what, we need help. Okay, send someone out and start a larger rescue, a larger call-out rescue. So it's okay to reassess and to change. And ultimately, what you got to keep in the back of your mind is what is in the best interest of patient care. And I think the best example of this is this picture right here. This is, again, the Thai boys that were stuck in the cave. For those of you who are familiar with what they did to get them out, they ended up anesthetizing them, completely knocking them out, and dragging them through sumps with a diver in the front and a diver in the back. So they were completely out. They were knocked out entirely to get them out of the cave. And that was what was in the best interest of patient care, was to do such an extreme thing. So change whatever you're doing based on the conditions. Okay. But as a whole, oh, sorry, there looks like a question. So Carly asked a really good question. Is there value in preemptively sending someone out for a call out in the case that things get worse in the cave? And how do you make that assessment? And this is a wonderful question, and I hate the answer I'm going to give you. And it's answer number one is it depends. Everything is situationally dependent. And so what I would do is say, okay, what are the injuries of the patient? Did the person sprain their ankle? If they're spraining an ankle and they're 2 pitches away from the entrance, they're short pitches, and it's a nice warm cave, you can go, yeah, send someone out for a rescue, but most likely you're going to have the SPAR done before they get there, you know. But maybe you're, 12 pitches down in an alpine cave in the Czech Republic, Okay, well, that's going to change my thought process. So I think what you got to do in those situations is sit down and say, well, what's my patient condition? What might happen to them in the future? Like, are they trending up? Or are they trending down? So you need to get some medical training there. And then say, well, what realistically can we expect the extraction to be like? So yeah, it's going to be situationally dependent. My rule of thumb is this. If I've got extra bodies, I can send a person out and have them initiate a call out. So generally speaking, I would send somebody out if I can. The only reason not to send them out to get to answer that question more explicitly is if you need that person there for patient care. And at least that's my interpretation of that. So at least put a call out on standby. You guys should have a call out anyway. If you're underground, you should have a call out. That's just part of going caving. Yes, theoretically, as soon as someone gets injured, you need to send someone out to inform the authority having jurisdiction. But again, it depends on whether or not you need that person there for patient care, in my mind. Because I'll do anything for another caver, anything at all. But it's situationally dependent. At least that's my interpretation of the situation. Okay. So the question really becomes, well, what are most of our patients like? And this is actually a really interesting question for rescuers as a whole, because I've asked this question to a number of search and rescue teams, and their answers really vary. If you look at ACA data from the past, what 60 years now, 65 years, something like that, about 97% of our patients can self-extract. Because 97% of your patients are ones that have extremity injuries, things like broken ankles or broken wrist, dislocated shoulder, that sort of thing. So, or things like impacts to the head, mild impacts to the head, where their bell is wrong, but they can still walk or extract out. So few are really in extreme life-threatening scenarios with their injuries. What's more likely to hurt them is them staying in the cave too long. So for most of our patients, a small party rescue is an option. Now, again, it's situationally dependent, but that's more than 90% is likely to work as a small party rescue. So I guess my point here is this, is that most of our rescues could be SPARs. Most of them could be. With the correct or with the best knowledge and training, you've got the small party rescue equipment with you, and you've got the right personnel and fitness. So if all the ducks are in a row, most of our rescues can be small party. With that said, sometimes you're taking newbies on a caving trip, and they just don't have the training, and that's okay. Sometimes you forgot to bring your gear. I've been on trips where people forgot to bring their food, or they get to the cave entrance and they're like, oh my gosh, I forgot all my vertical gear, So sometimes the gear ends up being a problem. But I guess the real point here is, if you plan and you prepare, most of these injuries can be resolved with a small party rescue. So I would implore you to spend some time, get some training, get a little bit of extra equipment, and be fit enough to go caving well, okay? So what may be a small party rescue for one caver might be a call-out rescue for another, and that is okay. If it's a bunch of small party rescue instructors going caving on a weekend, which we have planned in, a week, I think, we're likely to do a SPAR if anyone gets injured. But that same trip, if we take a bunch of people that are, coming, say, from the canyoneering world, who just don't understand a lot of the techniques that we're using underground, if they get injured, it might be a call-out rescue. So it's completely situationally dependent. Now, I just want to kind of end with this kind of invocation here, is that NCRC is here to help. We really, really want you to be safe underground, and we will do just about anything to help you out. And the instructor pool is a bunch of individuals who are family to each other. We absolutely love hanging out. We train, and we definitely don't get paid. So our courses are super, super cheap, okay? You see that in our trainings, we're always incredibly professional, as you can see from me and in a small party rescue course in Oregon. That's me when I had a little bit more hair. And, when I'm teaching things like the slippery hitch, right? But we have a ton of fun. So please come out. We will absolutely love to share what we know. I know that I'm doing training all the time in my region, locally in my grotto as well. So yes, please come. And I just want to end with this, and that is, like, we're all family, really. So feel free to contact me anytime about anything. If you want, just want to talk, bounce ideas off me, want some extra training, I will happily do what I can to be of assistance. And with that, I'm going to see if I can catch up with all of the comments that are currently rapidly flying through here. So it looks like there's a discussion about callouts. I'll just make a comment about this, is that if you're going to go underground, you need at least one callout. When I first started caving, I was told there were 3 rules of 3. You always tell 3 people where you're going. So you have 3 callouts, you have 3 sources of light, and you go with a group of at least 3 people. And I still do that personally. So have a callout. Okay, or surface watch. Thank you for that, Jennifer. Gerard, so you asked a great question, which is, can I provide a list of the books that I've read? So that link that was put near the beginning, and I can't remember who put it up there, to the little nonprofit. It looks like Scott Lynn put it up there. I've got an annotated bibliography on that web page, and so you can go there and look at it. So yeah, it's listed, every single item. And actually, I have 2 more books to add to that, and I just haven't added them. I should. Any other questions? That is the link to a little nonprofit that I'm running. And the webpage is http://sarrr.weebly.com. You can just type in SAR3 rescue, and it's the first Google hit. So that's always up there for you guys.
So Tom, can you share a rescue story with us?
A rescue
Either
story.
A rescue or a mock rescue that has been memorable.
Well, I have a number of mock rescue stories that are memorable, as Gretchen has pointed out. You know what? I want to share one that I think is apropos. So I had a friend of mine who she's a caver, and she went up to a series of alpine caves up in Washington, and after she got out of the cave, she broke her ankle, and it was I think it was an 18-hour extraction off the ridge, and it was a big to-do, yada yada yada. A year later, she is back in action. She's ready to go back up there. So we all climb up the ridge with her, and we drop into her favorite cave. And we run around, we have a lot of fun. We camp that night. The next day we go into another cave, which is one of my favorite up there. And we dropped it. We went all the way to the end. We started coming back. I ascend out, and then her daughter ascends the rope. And it's about a 45-foot pitch, alpine cave, so it's nice and cold. This woman who got injured is down at the bottom of the pitch. And what happens is the Kroll, her daughter's Kroll, gets stuck with one of a piece of her chest harness gets stuck in it, and she can't climb up and she can't climb down. It's just sliding freely, and so she's panicking, absolutely panicking. And of course, as soon as she starts panicking, her mother starts panicking. So this, empowering moment where we're all gonna have a great time and recover from the last traumatic experience on the ridge isn't happening, because now there's this point where her daughter is stuck on a rope. And I remember sitting there thinking, there are all kinds of different things that we can do. But what I have to do is find a way to get this young lady off the rope. And I tried to talk her through how to solve the problem. And honestly, cognitively, she was just so scared that she was not in any condition to make that determination. And so what I ended up having to do is to down climb to her. I had to invert and then detach her from a bunch of stuff, and then reattach her. I ascended out, and then she ascended out. And what I remember about this is that the entire time doing this rescue, her mother is screaming at me at the bottom of the pitch. Just, oh, my baby, and rescue her. And it was not a big deal. It was pretty straightforward. But it was not a big deal because I knew how to down climb a loaded rope. And it was not a big deal because I knew how to flip upside down. And it was not a big deal because I had some training and someone had forced me to do it in the past. And so what could have been a horrible experience was just a mildly annoying one, listening to someone yell at me. And so, yeah, that's one of my more interesting cave rescue stories. I've got tons of above ground stories, but
Great.
those are a little different.
Let's see. Tom, can you stop sharing your screen and then
Yeah.
we'll have gallery view and be able to see more folks.
There you go.
Johanna, I see you have a question. Any upcoming scheduled SPAR trainings in the East? I'm not going to answer that directly, but I will say next week there will be more announcements about upcoming cave rescue trainings. Thanks to Greg Moore, who has been preparing to have trainings, not just for last year, they were put on hold, so he had to keep planning, and now he has been getting them ready for this year. So I don't know if you want to talk any more about that, Greg.
Sure, I can mention real quick and I'll put it in the chat. But if you go to ncrc.info, we'll have updated information there. We are moving the national level 1 through level 3 in IQ course into mid to late August. We're working out the details, which is why I can't announce it just yet. And hopefully doing a regional in June. We would have thought about a SPAR this year, but I just don't have that many instructors that can take that many weekends off. So, but if anything changes, we'll keep you in touch. But also reach out to the Tony Smith, who's the Eastern Regional Coordinator, because who knows what he'll have in down that way.
So yeah, SPAR is one of our most requested classes, and we love teaching them. They're so much fun. But all of our instructors, we're all volunteers, and so we'd have to take time off. And I got to the point where I was doing 4-year plus doing week-longs, and I got to the point I'm like, okay, I have to limit myself. So we wish we could figure out a way to offer lots more, but hopefully we'll have at least a couple coming up in this next year. Plus, there will be at least a couple week-longs being offered and a whole bunch of orientation to cave rescues too. So we've got some training coming for you. We're just, the dates are going to be worked out more in the spring.
We are talking about doing one in Utah in the fall sometime. So that is a discussion we're having.
And to find out about them, yeah, look at the ncrc.info website. And we're going to be keeping those future classes more up to date. And even if the classes fill, we'll try to have waiting lists, because that gives us an idea of how many people are interested, and hopefully we can eventually meet all the need. Okay, Robert Johnson, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thomas, on your first slide, you showed a lady in a litter, and she was being lowered down, and she was horizontal. And I'm just wondering, I noticed on several of my vertical practices, when they did a pickoff, the victim is horizontal and they're being lowered down. That just gives their vulnerable spots on their face, their body, for all kinds of rock droppage. Why aren't they in a sitting position when they're lowered down?
So I think, again, it's what is in the best interest of patient care. So taking a patient vertically is, as far as rock fall is concerned, is far better. But if they can't handle it, you got to take them horizontally. So you have to, as a competent technical rescuer, you need to be able to do both modalities.
Okay, I guess they're unconscious or something like that is what they're supposed to be.
That picture was a training, and so that just happened to be the choice they were making in that moment.
I thought maybe it was the way because of their harness was hooked up, because when I'm unconscious and I'm sitting on rope, I'm just sitting there like in a chair. I'm not laying flat. If I let go of everything and just relax.
If there's a hip injury or various other specific injuries, you may have to raise and lower horizontally.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other questions for Tom? Okay, Tom, there's one in the chat. Does Scott Air Force Base still play a role in this?
I have no idea.
You know that. Does anybody know that?
My understanding is that goes back, I think, as far back as the 70s. So the general answer is no. We do have the capability to call upon, forget the exact service, the Air Force for transporting people. But last time I know we used that was here in the Northeast. And Emily, you can remember what year?
98.
98. So I would say the answer is pretty much no.
Guillermo wants to know, how do you become an instructor? Tom, would you take that on?
Sure. The first one is you need to take levels 1, 2, and 3, NCRC levels 1, 2, and 3. There needs to be a need in your region for a new instructor.
There's always a
and-
need, so that's not huge.
Sure, but there's got to be need, yeah. And you need to be good at what you do, and have some potential for being able to teach well. So there's nothing special about being an instructor. Like, there's kind of this mystique of, oh, you're an instructor, you know everything. That's not true at all. They let me be an instructor and I don't know anything. So it's really just put your time in as a you know, a level 1, 2, 3. Practice your skills so that you know what you're doing. Become a good caver, and then continue to improve your skills. You know, go to things like the International Technical Rescue Symposium, go to Mountain Rescue Association meetings, you know, get training with other organizations. And when you have a lot of this experience, then you can become an instructor. Yes, IQ is still required. But
what is IQ?
IQ is the Instructor Qualification course. And to do that, you submit an application, and they basically say that you are one of the top students. Will take you the next year, and it can take you a few tries to get in, and that's okay. But I will say that if you want to be instructor, you need to teach. You know, like right now in my region, I have, I think, 3 trainings in the next, what is it? 2-3 weeks, I think, that I'm training. They're not NCRC related, but you have to be active in your local community. So you need to be teaching a lot.
So yeah, so our progression is a lot of people start off with orientation to cave rescue, which is just a 2-day class to get the taste of what rescue is like. And then we have the small party assisted rescue class is usually 3 or 4 or 5 days. And then there is the week-longs with the level 1, which is how to become a team member for cave rescue. Level 2, how to become a team leader. And level 3 is more advanced operations of how to manage the incident or how to do advanced rigging. The focus can change a little bit year to year. But it's a lot of fun, and it takes time. You have to be willing to put in the time, but you make such great friends doing it. And so I highly encourage you, if you have interest in cave rescue, to keep an eye out for those courses and sign up for them.